Hey everyone, it's Eitan, and today I want to tell you about my last month's adventures throughout New York City doing real estate, meeting high net worth clients to help them find new spaces, new office spaces, or restaurant spaces throughout the city, and what I learned in the last month. I'm very excited and I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. If you're like me and you watched YouTube videos about making money or finance, then at some point you must have stumbled upon how real estate is going to make you rich, or how the best way to become a millionaire is through real estate, or how 90% of millionaires own a piece of real estate throughout the United States. I thought that now that I have some money saved up for my Amazon business, it would be time for me to explore real estate with the free time that I had now that school was over. But I was done watching videos about how to do real estate and how to get started. I wanted to learn from a first-hand source. I wanted to learn from a real estate agent or somebody that's been successful in real estate. So the first thing I did was I opened up a LinkedIn and I started searching up people from my school that are currently doing real estate, because I thought that if I had some sort of connection with them, or that these people could somehow relate to me, then I'd more likely get a response. So I went on LinkedIn and I searched the different people from my school doing real estate, and I found a couple of people. I connected with them and I sent them each the same text but personalized it by saying their name in front of my text. And I basically said, hey, I'm looking to learn a little bit about real estate. I'd love to chat for a few minutes if you have some time. And I got a lot of responses. Most of the people said, I'll talk to you sometime this week, because it was a Sunday that I was talking to them. But there was one person who said, call me anytime, here's my number. So I was really eager to just get started and learn something about real estate. I didn't care what I was going to learn. I just wanted to speak with somebody about how real estate really works instead of just watching videos. So the minute I saw that he gave me his number, I called him on the phone right away and we started talking about real estate. I told him I'd just love to speak with you for 5 minutes. We ended up speaking for 45 minutes, and at the end of the call, he saw how interested I was in real estate that he offered me an internship on the spot. So when he offered me that internship, I was thinking this might be the best way to actually experience real estate and get to know if this would be something that I want to do full time, or if I want to switch from Amazon to real estate. And I thought I'll give this internship a shot. So the following day I went into New York City and I went to his office. The second I stepped foot in the office, he got up, shook my hand and said, let's go. I didn't even know where we were going. I didn't know what my job was. All I knew is that I had an internship. But when he said let's go, we just walked onto the streets of New York City and we started walking at a really fast pace. I didn't know where we were going, but I was just following his lead. I just pretended like I knew what I was doing. And he told me that we were going to tour a property and potentially get an exclusive. I didn't even know what an exclusive was, but as we were walking, he taught me so much about real estate within those 10 minutes to get to that office space. So we walk into this office space and the first thing that he says is, this isn't 2,500 square feet. I'm looking around. I don't even know what 10 square feet looks like. How am I supposed to know what 2,500 square feet looks like? And I remember we walked around the space. He was admiring the cabinets and the HVAC, and I didn't understand most of the terms he was just throwing out over there, but I pretended like I belonged. But eventually, I started asking questions. His name was Michael. I told him, Michael, walk me through what you're thinking over here. So I felt like he put me in his head and he started telling me all of the problems with the space, if he wanted to take it exclusive, and if he wanted the responsibility of being the only broker in New York City allowed to show his space to different clients. At this point, I was getting a hang of what a good price for real estate in New York City would be, and I realized that $30 to $35 per square foot was a good price in New York City, and that $40 is way too expensive. Right when we returned to the office, he got a call for the landlord of that space, and he said he would take the exclusive and he'd have a guy working on that full time. That guy that he was talking about was me. In the following weeks, it would become my primary job to lease out that office space at 552 7th Avenue. So the following day, I came into the office and Michael told me to sit down and start calling people from buildings in the nearby area to see if they potentially wanted to move to this office space that I was in charge of. This boutique building on 7th Avenue that's cheaper than the buildings around it, and I could potentially move some tenants from the nearby buildings to that building. So then I asked him, do you mean that I'm going to be cold calling? He said, that's exactly what you're going to be doing. And at that point, I was deeply disturbed inside. Cold calling, my biggest enemy. I was about to be reduced to one of those annoying callers who calls you up when you're the most busy and asks if you want something for free or if you wanted to save money. And that's basically what I was doing. I was going to call people and ask them if they wanted to save money on their real estate property. That was the thing I wanted to do least, and I never wanted to sign up for it. So I had a different idea, and when I told the boss this, he says, most people don't even have the guts to do what you want to do, but if you think you can do it, go ahead. My idea was to walk into these buildings instead of just calling the people working in them and knock on doors and ask them if they wanted to switch. So I wanted to be friendly, smile, and actually form a relationship with these people in person instead of just calling them up when they're busy and then getting hung up on many times a day. So on my second day on the job, I went to one of the most iconic buildings in the fashion district of New York City, and it was 1407 Broadway. Before walking into the building, I used CoStar, which was an app that would tell me all of the tenants in the building and which ones are in how many square feet of space. The space that I was in charge of listing had exactly 2,500 square feet available. So I went into the app and I filtered for clients that were occupying 2,500 square feet of space. And after I found those clients, I only went to those doors and knocked on them. And I remember when I was about to knock on my first door, I paced back and forth for literally 5 minutes before building up the courage to knock on the door and ask a random stranger if they wanted to save money on rent. But eventually, I finally did it. I pretended to be confident, walked in with a straight back and a big smile, and I asked the tenant if he's looking to switch offices. I did that for about 5 times. I went from the 20th floor down to the 1st floor, up to the 9th floor, back down to the 1st floor. It was really hectic. Eventually, I wanted to switch tactics, and I decided I don't care anymore. I'm going to knock on every single door in the building until I find a client. So I started at the 20th floor, and I just knocked on every single door, asking if anybody wants to save money on their rent. Eventually, after knocking on 3 floors worth, I was already, in my mind, a professional cold knocker. And by the time I got to the 17th floor, I actually found one client who was interested in moving office spaces, but his current office was 1,500 square feet and he wanted to move to something smaller. I was really excited. I found my first client on my first day of actually scouring the city. I thought in my mind, if I get one tenant every 3 floors, I'm going to be making lots of money in real estate, because the commissions in real estate are 4 months rent for any tenant that I get to move in for a 10-year lease. And 4 months rent could be anything from $5,000 to $500,000 in New York City, depending on the apartment size. His size, 1,500 square feet, wouldn't be giving me that much commission, but it was a great start and it motivated me to keep going. So I thought that at that rate, I would be able to find a tenant every 3 floors. So I went down 3 more floors, knocked on every single door. I got to the 14th floor and I still didn't find another tenant. 13, 12, 11, 10. I went all the way to the 1st floor and got no more tenants for the day. I ended up with 1 potential tenant, and I didn't know what to think of that. So when I went back to the office, I told Michael, and he told me never in his entire career doing real estate has he seen somebody find a potential tenant on their first day in the job. That was extremely rewarding for me, and it gave me the motivation to keep searching different buildings throughout the city for the following days. I scoured maybe 5 to 10 buildings, every single door, and I really gained confidence speaking with strangers and not caring what other people think, and building up really a tolerance for rejection. The following week, when I entered the office, he told me that he wanted me to stop what I was doing and spend a week memorizing the city. He told me he wants me to know every single block, every single building, what numbers of buildings are on which blocks in the city, and what are the different districts, the Diamond District, the Fashion District, all the different areas in the city, and I should memorize all of the spaces available for lease in New York City, so that if somebody tells me they're looking for a 1,500 square foot property in between 20th and 50th Street, I'd have a property immediately pop into my mind because I know New York City so well. I remember I spent multiple days just walking up and down the blocks in the city, getting a feel of what New York City was like so that I would be prepared for my next client that tells me they want a space. In the meantime, I was still looking for a space for my first client that I found on my first day on the job. And after hours of searching different websites and walking around in person, I finally found a space a block away from the building he was in for less than half the price that he was currently paying. I thought for sure he'd want to move and that he'd be excited when I brought him the offer. So I went back to his building a week later and I told him I had a space for him to see. After touring the space that I found him and trying to imagine his layout in the space, he told me he was really excited and he wanted his dad to take a look at it as well because they were a father-son business, and that he would decide if he wants to move in. I thought it was very promising that I would finally get my first real estate check. I'd finally make money off of this new internship that I was doing to see if real estate was even something for me. As I was waiting for him to finish, I started looking for other clients to fill that original space that I was assigned to, which was 552 7th Avenue. That was the major job that I was really assigned to do. So as I kept looking for different people, I met a guy that had 7,500 square feet of space in Manhattan, and he was looking to expand, which means that he wanted me to find him a space anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 square feet. I got really excited because after doing some quick calculations, if I was able to rent out a space for my tenant for 10,000 square feet, I would just multiply $30 per square foot, which is the minimum you're able to get a property for in New York City these days. $30 per square foot times 10,000, which is $300,000 that he'd be paying a year. And my firm would get 4 months rent of that, which would be $300,000 divided by 12, which is $25,000. And then I'd multiply that by 4, which is $100,000 in total that my brokerage would be getting. And I would be getting 35% of that because I was a new intern, which is still a lot of money for an 18-year-old that just wants to try out a new business, which would be $35,000 for less than a month's work. And I was really excited about that. And I feel like anybody watching this video, you can see how much potential there is in real estate. Just know that there's a lot of work and luck involved in finding somebody that's actually looking for such a large space. And I was just really lucky that he was looking for a space at the same time that I was walking around the city knocking on random doors. And he's actually looking to work with us on moving properties very soon. So I helped my boss, Michael, at the time, help schedule potential tours for this client to go see different spaces throughout the city. The way it works is that we would schedule with the brokers of these different places in the city, and we would take our client on a tour of each space consecutively, one by one, so that he would be able to see all of them and which one he might want to complete his lease with. Now, the only problem of going that route is that the broker who's showing the space would get half of the commission for the property, which would half my check and half the entire brokerage's check of $100,000 down to $50,000 in total earnings from this client if we would find a space using a broker instead of going directly to a landlord. But honestly, that's the fastest way to do it, so that's the way that we went. Here's some footage of us touring those potential spaces for our client. Currently electric skateboarding through the city on the way to show a space to a high net worth client. Quick tour of my office before I get to work. This is where I sit. I'm just checking out the space. Here's the first space we're showing today. The second space of the day. This is quite a broken down space. Huge, 14,000 square feet. Another one. Michael is telling me a little bit about what the broker's job is.
Yes. Part of your job is to provide a service to the tenant. Why should they choose you over a corporate guy or somebody else? But you always want to stand out as a broker, be professional, act with sophistication, and conduct business in a way that makes him want to call you and not hang up on your call and not call somebody else.
Because at the end of the day, every broker is essentially doing the same job.
Exactly. You need to stand out. What can you do to be the best version of yourself that makes everybody want to do business with you?
I like that. I like that. As you can see, they're large spaces and they're mostly completely empty, which is what we're looking for with a clothing client who wants to add his own showrooms and his own inventory and really fill up the space the way he wants to do it. And those are the types of spaces that we found for our client. After seeing those spaces, I'm still waiting on a response from him regarding which spaces he actually wants to further look into and maybe complete a lease with. But it's very promising that I might actually close a space within my first month of doing real estate in New York City. My month-long real estate journey was filled with other side quests, such as helping a coffee tenant find a new place to open a new coffee shop in the city. I spent a week looking for spaces for him, and I showed him all the different spaces, and then at the end he changed his mind about wanting to move. While I was looking for new restaurants to expand locations, I ran into the $300 million founder of a new restaurant chain in New York City, and I actually asked him some life lessons, which I'm going to speak about in another video. Overall, I spoke to many different people, made a lot of new connections, and really faced a lot of fears throughout my month in real estate. At the end of the month, I noticed how different I became, how much more courageous, how much more outgoing and extroverted I became, just because I was spending every single day speaking with new people and making new connections, hoping that just one person would want to use us as their broker for a new space. And that was really the motivation for this entire month's journey, was just to really understand real estate and get more of a feel of how it would actually work if I wanted to use that as a business model or a side hustle or a hobby. And I really learned a lot. So now I want to tell you about the lessons I learned throughout my month in real estate. The first thing I learned is that real estate is not for everybody. In order to be successful in real estate, you need the courage and the guts to just walk up to somebody new, somebody that looks like they have a lot of money, and just ask them and speak to them genuinely and become interested in other people around you. You need to be able to be extroverted enough to speak with new people and potentially help them find a new space for their current business, or help them understand what their goals are and try to find them a property that would actually align with their views for their company or their restaurant. And to me, I felt like that was the hardest obstacle to overcome in my real estate journey, because I was so worried about getting rejected. But the second that I realized that what the other person thinks of me isn't important, I realized that I could speak with whoever I wanted and potentially sign major deals with these people by just asking enough people. All I needed was 1% of the people that I asked to say yes, and I would have hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions in the pipeline. All you need to do is learn how to put yourself out there, ask enough people, and you're going to get a large return. I think the quote from Arnold Palmer basically sums up that first lesson I learned in real estate, which is, the more I practice, the luckier I get. I kept summing up all of the people that I found due to luck, but really it was just by putting myself out there more. I was letting luck do its thing. By putting myself out there, I gave more people a chance to actually be interested in looking for real estate. The second lesson I learned is that there are going to be a lot of disappointments in real estate. You're going to get rejected many times, and you're going to have to realize that they're not rejecting you as a person, they're rejecting the idea that you're bringing to them. You have to separate yourself from the rejection and just realize it's just another part of the job. There were many times that I would call different clients up and then get hard rejections and really lose motivation for the next couple of hours to even call another person. The moment that I realized the rejection is separate from my worth as a person is when I learned to overcome those rejections much quicker than I was doing at the start. The third thing I learned in real estate was just the general terms. A lot of these terms apply to not only office real estate and retail real estate, it also applies to if you're buying a house or renting a property. You're going to want to understand what square footage means and what HVAC means, and the different terms that are going to be thrown around in every aspect of real estate. You're going to want to learn those terms. So learning those terms was very beneficial to me. Even if I'm not going to continue in commercial real estate, I know that one day these terms are going to help me with whatever piece of real estate I'm eventually going to buy. The fourth lesson I learned is that yes does not always mean yes. Sometimes people tell you that they're looking for spaces, but that only really applies when you find them the perfect space that they imagine at the perfect price that they're looking for, which is very rare. There were many times that I got really excited because I found a potential client who told me they were looking for a space, and then after finding them spaces as close to their idea of perfect as possible, they would tell me that it wasn't good enough or that it was too expensive, and no matter how hard I tried with these people, their expectations didn't match reality. So many times you're going to get false hopes from people who are looking for something that you really can't provide. And at the end of the day, it's just part of the game. It's part of that career, and if you're going to be doing that, you're going to have to get comfortable with the idea that not everything is as it seems. The last lesson I took away from my month in real estate is that there are so many different types of real estate you can get into. When I first imagined myself going into real estate, I never thought that I would actually do commercial and retail leasing. I never thought that I would help restaurants open new locations or help people move from their offices to new offices. I imagined myself investing in a property and then waiting for it to go up in value. There are so many different channels in real estate, and you can decide which one you want to go into. Before jumping straight into real estate like I did, I would recommend doing your research about the different pathways that you could take throughout real estate, and then really deciding which path you want to go down before you just jump straight into it like I did. In my experience, office and retail leasing isn't the best way for you to multiply the money that you currently have. When I got started in real estate, I was looking for the best of ways for me to take my money and help it grow slowly but surely. And instead, I went into a field where my time was money. And the more time I spent on a job, the more money I would potentially be able to make. Personally, when it comes to real estate, I don't want to be trading my time for money. I want to be using my money as a tool to grow, to make more from what I already have instead of trading my time for money. I do recommend this for somebody that has very little saved up and wants to find a way to just generate cash. For me personally, a month was more than enough for me to understand that office and retail leasing wasn't the thing for me. I hope that you use my journey as a way for you to understand if real estate is even the thing for you to go into, whether you want to start your own journey through real estate in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really hoping you found this helpful in any way. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.